Hello and welcome. In this video, we are going to discuss two stories about flying. The first is his first flight, and the second is Black Aeroplane. Make sure you watch this video until the end because we are going to discuss the themes, good vocabulary, and much more. So, first, we'll be discussing the story, His First Flight, written by Liam O. Flaherty. This story is about courage, self-confidence, and having a never give up attitude. So let's go into the story. So if you're wondering what a seagull is, this is the picture of a seagull. The young seagull was alone on his ledge. Ledge means at the edge of a cliff. His two brothers and his sister had already flown away the day before. He had been afraid to fly with them. So the question could come, why hadn't the young seagull flown away with his siblings? Because he was afraid to fly. Another synonym of afraid is terrified or petrified. Somehow, when he had taken a little run forward to the brink of the ledge and attempted to flap his wings, he became afraid. The great expanse of sea stretched down beneath, and it was such a long way down, miles down. He felt certain that his wings would never support him, and he bent his head and ran away back to the little hole under the ledge where he slept at night. So, the reason why he did not want to fly from the edge of the ledge was because he felt certain that his wings would never support him. So here, what he is doing is he is doing self-sabotage. His negative thoughts are preventing him from achieving his goal of his well-being. Even when each of his brothers and his little sister, whose wings were far shorter than his own, ran to the brink, flapped their wings and flew away, he failed to muster up courage to take that plunge which appeared to him so desperate. So even when his little sister, whose wings was far shorter than his own, he could not gather up the courage to take that jump. Another synonym of the word gather up is summon. He could not summon up the courage to take that jump. His father and mother had come around calling to him shrilly. Shrilly means sharply. Upbraiding him. Upbraiding is reprimanding him, which means scolding him. Threatening him to let him starve on his ledge unless he flew away. But for the life of him, he could not move. But no matter what they did, they called to him sharply, they shouted at him, they threatened him that they will not give him any food. But still, he was left frozen, or he was left immobile, or he was left rooted to the spot, means he could not move. That was 24 hours ago. Since then, nobody had come near him, so he was left isolated. The day before, all day long, he had watched his parents flying about with his brothers and sister, perfecting them in the art of flying, teaching them how to skim the waves and how to dive for fish. He had in fact seen his older brother catch his first herring. Herring is a type of fish, and devour it. So devour means eat hungrily. Another synonym for the word hungry is ravenously. That is devour it. So he was all alone on the ledge of the cliff while he saw his parents teaching his siblings how to thrive and teaching them various life skills which will help them survive. Standing on a rock while his parents circled around, raising a proud cackle. So the parents were also proud because their child had caught the first fish. And all the morning, the whole family had walked about on the big plateau midway down the opposite cliff, taunting him with his cowardice. So not only was he isolated, but he was also taunted by the entire family for his lack of bravery. The sun was now ascending the sky, blazing on his ledge that faced the south. So now the sun was coming up. He felt the heat because he had not eaten since the previous nightfall. Because his parents had told him that unless he learns to fly, he will not be provided with any food. He stepped slowly out to the brink of the ledge and, standing on one leg with the other leg hidden under his wing, he closed one eye, then the other, and pretended to be falling asleep. So now he was exhausted because he had not eaten for the past 24 hours, and now he was pretending like he was sleeping. Still, they took no notice of him. He saw his two brothers and his sister lying on the plateau, dozing with their heads sunk into their necks. So their bellies were full and they were dozing off. His father was preening the feathers on his white back. So what was the father doing? The father was cleaning the feathers on the white back. Preening means cleaning. Only his mother was looking at him. So the mother was feeling pity on the child because the child had not eaten. She was standing on a little high hump on the plateau, her white breast thrust forward. Now and again, she tore a piece of fish that lay at her feet and then scraped each side of her beak on the rock. The sight of the food maddened him, so he was extremely hungry. He was famished. So, another word for being extremely hungry is famished. How he loved to tear food that way, scraping his beak now and again to wet it. So, wet it means sharpen it. So, the mother was actually tricking him and she was alluring him so that will make him fly. Alluring means attracting him. Ga, 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 he cried, begging her to bring him some food. Gav kol ah, she screamed back derisively. So, derisively means in a mocking way or ridiculing him. But he kept calling plaintively. So, plaintively means in a very sad and mournful way. And after a minute or so, he uttered a joyful scream. His mother had picked up a piece of fish and was flying across to him with it. So he was overjoyed because his mother was coming to him with some food. He leaned out eagerly, tapping the rock with his feet, trying to get nearer to her as she flew across. So this shows that he could not wait any longer. But when she was just opposite to him, she halted, her wings motionless, the piece of fish in her beak almost within reach of his beak. He waited a moment in surprise, wondering why she did not come nearer, and then, maddened with hunger, he dived at the fish. So, what made him plunge could be a question. Because he was famished or ravenous with hunger or maddened with hunger, he plunged. With a loud scream, he fell outward and downward into space. Then a monstrous terror seized him, and his heart stood still. He could hear nothing, but it only lasted a minute. The next moment, he felt his wings spread outward. The wind rushed against his breast feathers, then under his stomach, and against his wings. He could feel the tip of his wings cutting through the air. He was not falling headlong now. He was soaring gradually downward and outward. So the little seagull never believed in himself, but he needed a push or something to motivate him to take that plunge. He was no longer afraid, so he was fearless now. He just felt a bit dizzy. Then he flapped his wings once and he soared upward. Ga, 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 kola. His mother swooped past him, her wings making a loud noise. He answered her with another scream. Then his father flew over him screaming. He saw his two brothers and his sister flying around him, curvetting and banking and soaring and diving. So not only was he overjoyed, but he was joined by the entire family, and they were also jumping energetically and celebrating. So he was near the sea now, flying straight over it, facing straight out over the ocean. He saw a vast green sea beneath him, with little ridges moving over it, and he turned his beak sideways and cawed amusedly. So the seagull had actually overcome his biggest fear, and now he was cawing in a very entertaining manner. His parents and his brothers and sisters had landed on this green flooring ahead of him. They were beckoning to him. So beckoning means signaling for him also to join them. Calling shrilly. He dropped his leg to stand on the green sea. His legs sank into it. He screamed with fright and attempted to rise again, flapping his wings. But he was tired and weak with hunger and could not rise, exhausted. So now he was again anxious to go into the sea. But because he was so exhausted or tired, he could not fly up again. His feet sank into the green sea and then his belly touched it, and he sank no further. He was floating on it, and around him his family was screaming, praising him, and their beaks were offering him scrapes of dogfish. He had made his first flight. So his entire family was applauding, congratulating, and celebrating his victory. So the theme of what we understand from the story is that success only comes to those who dare. One should trust one's ability, and fear or apprehension. Apprehension means anticipating anything with fear. कि क्या मैं कर सकती हूँ? That is self-doubt. Will not help anyone attain success. We should have self-confidence, the courage to overcome fear, and we should boldly face our challenges without any negative thoughts. Also, the story teaches us another important lesson, that nobody is less capable or unworthy or weak. Some may not immediately succeed or be bold, but does not mean that they are any less worthy than what we perceive them to be. I hope you enjoyed listening to this explanation. Now let's go to the next story, The Black Aeroplane. The story, The Black Aeroplane, is written by Frederick Forsyth. So this story tells us about courage, determination, and the ability to take risk during times of danger or distress. So we'll discuss the theme towards the end. First, let's go into the story. The moon was coming up in the east behind me, and stars were shining in the clear sky above me. There wasn't a cloud in the sky. I was happy to be alone, high up above the sleeping countryside. So here the narrator is really happy, saying it was a very clear, cloudless sky, perfect for flying. I was happy to be alone, high up above the sleeping countryside. I was flying my old Dakota aeroplane over France back to England. I was dreaming of my holiday and looking forward to being with my family. So here a question could come, why was the narrator happy? Or why was the pilot happy? So here the pilot was happy because he was dreaming of a holiday and was looking forward to spending quality time with his family. It was 1:30 in the morning. I should call Paris Control soon, I thought. As I looked down past the nose of the aeroplane, I saw the lights of a big city in front of me. I switched on the radio and said, Paris Control, Dakota DS088 here. Can you hear me? I'm on my way to England. Over. The voice from the radio answered me immediately. DS088, I can hear you. You ought to turn 12 degrees west now. DS 088 over. So here, the Paris control was guiding or instructing the pilot that he has to turn 12 degrees to the west. I checked the map and the compass, switched over to my second and last fuel tank, and turned the Dakota 12 degrees west towards England. So he was on bound to England, and from here we can come to know that he was on his last fuel tank. I'll be in time for breakfast, I thought. A good big English breakfast. Everything was going well. It was an easy flight. So he was excited to have a hearty English breakfast in the morning, as he would reach right on time for breakfast. Paris was about 150 kilometers behind me when I saw the clouds. Storm clouds. They were huge. They looked like black mountains standing in front of me across the sky. So here, the author has used simile. Simile is comparing something to another using the word like. So here, the storm clouds are compared to be seen as black, huge mountains. I knew I could not fly up and over them, and I did not have enough fuel to fly around them to the north or south. So unfortunately, he could only go through the storm. Why? This could be the question. Because he could not fly up and over them, nor he could turn north or south because of the lack of enough fuel. I ought to go back to Paris, I thought. So he said, my only way is to go back to Paris, which is 150 kilometers before. But I wanted to get home. I wanted that breakfast. So I'll take the risk. So why was he ready to take the risk? Because he wanted to go home, and second, he wanted to have a hearty big English breakfast. I thought, and flew that old Dakota straight into the storm. So he had taken a huge risk. Inside the clouds, everything was suddenly black. So it was pitch dark. As he was going through the storm, it was impossible to see anything outside the aeroplane. The old aeroplane jumped and twisted in the air, so he felt turbulence. I looked at the compass. I couldn't believe my eyes. The compass was turning round and round and round. It was dead. It would not work. The other instruments were suddenly dead too. I tried the radio. So here, this plane had malfunctioned. And nothing was working. Paris control, can you hear me? There was no answer. The radio was dead too. So there was total radio silence. And he was in a very dangerous situation. I had no radio, no compass, and I could not see where I was. So he was in a very dire situation. And he was directionless. Because he didn't know where he was and he didn't know what he had to do or where he had to go. Then, in the black clouds quite near me, I saw another aeroplane. It had no lights on its wing, but I could see it flying next to me through the storm. I could see the pilot's face turn towards me. I was glad to see another person. He lifted one hand and waved. Follow me, he was saying, follow me. He knows that I am lost, I thought. He's trying to help me. So here, the narrator feels relieved or glad that in this dire situation or in this dangerous situation, he had found a ray of hope. Someone who would help him show the way out and guide him to safety. He turned his aeroplane slowly to the north, in front of my Dakota. So that it would be easier for me to follow him. I was very happy to go behind the strange aeroplane like an obedient child. So he's saying I followed him just like an obedient child. After half an hour, the strange black aeroplane was still there in front of me in the clouds. So even after half an hour, the aeroplane was still going and guiding him. And there was only enough fuel in the old Dakota's last tank to fly for 5 or 10 more minutes. So now he was feeling petrified or anxious because he had only enough fuel for 5 to 10 more minutes of flying. I was starting to feel frightened again, but then he started to go down and I followed through the storm. Suddenly, I came out of the clouds and saw two long straight lines of light in front of me. It was a runway and airport. I was safe. So he saw two lines of light. So he could know that that was a runway and he was safe. I turned to look for my friend in the black aeroplane. So why did he call it the black aeroplane? Because there was no light on the wings and it was pitch dark. But the sky was empty. There was nothing there. The black aeroplane was gone. I could not see it anywhere. I landed and was not sorry to walk away from the old Dakota near the control tower. So he's saying that he was not feeling bad to leave his plane unattended. Why wasn't he feeling bad to leave his plane unattended? Let's see. I went and asked a woman in the control center where I was. So he was clueless of where he was, who the other pilot was. So he was inquisitive. Inquisitive is curious. He wanted to know who was the other person who had saved his life, and he also wanted to thank that person. She looked at me very strangely and then laughed. Another aeroplane up there in the storm? No other aeroplane was flying tonight. Yours was the only one I could see on the radar. She said that he was the only one and there wasn't no other aeroplane. So here now the narrator's feeling confused. So who helped me to arrive there safely without a compass or a radio and without any more fuel in my tanks? Who was the pilot on the strange black aeroplane flying in the storm without light? So the story ends in a mystery and the narrator has many questions unanswered. So we can also call the story a miracle. That miraculously he took his old aeroplane from the storm and he was guided out of it. So the story teaches us an important lesson that during times of distress or danger, one should not lose hope, but be courageous and face the situation bravely. So if they do that, it will help them find the light or find the rainbow at the end of the storm, or they will find a ray of hope or a light at the end of the tunnel. Also, that success only comes to those who dare. There are no miracles or mysteries in life, but a calm mind will guide you to solve the problems that lay ahead in life. Thank you so much for watching this video until the end. I'm so proud of you. If you haven't subscribed, please do it right now. God bless, and I'm praying for each one of you. Thank you.